created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Today, we are celebrating, or we're having not only the 10th program of our series in spectacular singing. Today, moreover than this episode 10th, we are having a celebration, and we wanted to have this celebration with all of you.
Salut la France, à mes amis, à l'espérance, à mes amours.
Salut à la France, and we want to thank moreover than anyone else, not because we do not appreciate all the countries and cities that are listening to us, but Katya and I would like to thank you very, very, very openly to people in Paris, because we have been watching the statistics in Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Paris, the single city of Paris, it accounts for 12% of all our listeners in the world. We are currently being heard in 880 cities already, a super huge number, an astonishing number in the streaming podcasting, 880, and one single city takes 12% out of those listeners, and that is Paris. So I really, really, really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will, of course, let Katya thank you as well, because as we have shared some other times in the past, of course, we started, or this project started 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, of course, with our best commitment to make it work because we love music. And truth is that we never thought we could be able to reach 91 countries and as of today, 880 cities. It's astonishing. Paris with 12%, a single city accounting for wow, that huge number. And of course, we have a huge number of listeners also in the UK, Germany, Netherlands, the United States, of course, people listening to us in Brazil, and the list goes on and on and on. So thank you very much for that. Katia, is there anything that you would like to say to our listeners in La France, in Paris?
Yes, I think that when we started this project, probably we never thought that we would reach public in such a beautiful place like Paris is. So thank you, all of you, because without you, this couldn't be possible. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything.
And that's the reason why we are having Salut à la France, which is going to be our topic for today. And I think that the first, maybe we should start personally. Let me share something with you. From Maestro Donizetti, you could, in a way, split his roles into the poor suffering women and queens, Anna Boleyn, Roberto de Verdun, Elizabeth, Maria Stuarda, those poor women who suffer a lot and make lots of ornaments and suffer for the man, and Lucia di Lammermoor, who loses her mind and kills her husband on the wedding night. So those are tremendous roles, but he has two very hilarious, beautiful, lovable roles, which are Adina in L'Élysée d'Amore, of course, and we have Marie, as this is the case, in La Fille du Régiment. The two of them are super lovable. I really couldn't know which one to choose. They are so different among them, but vocally, I think that the two of them are very comfortable, provided that you have a good technique. If you don't have a good technique, nothing is going to work. Of course. But if you have a good technique, the two of them are very easy to handle. And unfortunately, I think that we have not seen enough of La Fille du Régiment. And the point is, or the obstacle here is not the soprano, is the tenor. Because you need a tenor who has to handle the most horrible aria that Maestro Donizetti composed. A mes amis, quel jour de fête. It's I have expressed it in the season. It was season 3 or 4. The Parlons de when we had the program for Parlons de la fille du régiment. I shared with you. So I was honest in that year. I am honest now. A mes amis is one of the most horrible things ever composed. Not only by Donizetti, but by any composer. If you pay attention to the melody, if melody is to be called, is too oversimplistic. There is really nothing attractive, but it has the high C for the tenor. So people say, "Oh, the high C." Well, if you, ah, mes amis, quand je la fête, je vais marcher sous votre peau. Ah, mes amis, I mean, what is the richness in that melody? There is nothing.
Why don't you say why?
Maestro Donizetti, having composed so many beautiful things, why did you do that? But on the other hand, we have the adorable Marie, which I would also say that she's a rock star. What do you think, Katia?
Yes, I think that coloratura soprano, it's like the same idea of a rock star. So yes, we used to sing these kind of roles, and I think it's a pretty good idea.
And it is. We will see in a couple of minutes that it is. In a way, it's not particularly difficult in the sense that it is not in the stratosphere as Olympia, because Olympia is always higher than a high D, because it was Maestro Offenbach thought that it was a good idea to have Olympia sing in the stratosphere, but
She's gonna
Marie,
get broken anyway, so let's broke her.
but Maria is a much more modest role, at least in the height of the notes. But it is, in a way, it is a very long role. Even if your participations can be shorter for a number of times, Marie is continuously on the stage, and she has to always capture the attention, and she has to be fun. And there is this part. There is this very special thing in Le Fille du Régiment where you have a spoken character, which is more in the tradition of the Singspiel. So there are several things that make this one very, very interesting. And going back to Marie, because we're celebrating or thinking La France today, I wouldn't say or that it is the most difficult role from Donizetti in technically or vocally speaking, but I could say that maybe it's the more demanding because of the amount of time that you're on a stage and because you always have to capture the attention of people. When we talked about Musetta, yes, Musetta is important, but the only second or the only moment she's the rock star is Cuando Menbo. That is the only moment where everyone is paying attention only to her. But Marie, the second she starts singing, everybody has to look at Marie. And that gives a particular tone to her Salut à la France, because even it is also the case, as it has been in other areas that we have shared, it may not be necessary, or at least for the listener, to understand or to know all the words, but he catches the melody. You don't know if she says, as in here, Salut à la France, à mes beaux jours, à l'espérance, à mes amours, salut à la France, à l'espérance, à mes amis, salut à la gloire, voilà pour mon cœur, avec la victoire, l'instant du bonheur, and then start the ornaments. It doesn't really matter if she sings all of that, because what people keep in their mind is da 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 la la da 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 la la da 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 la la, and it is very lovely the way they da 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 la la da da da, because it really tells you she is having fun. She's really enjoying it. What are your thoughts, Katia, on the role of Marie?
Well, probably I haven't shared this even with you, but in some point of my life, I thought that I would like to be, um, sorry, ingeniero militar, a military engineer.
Oh,
Oh yes,
oh,
yes,
okay.
yes. So that explains my relation with Iron Man, and probably why Mary fits so well to me. Yes. So it is a lovely story because she has many fathers. She has many fathers
She
in the
does, yeah.
army, and probably it is a shit score that comes from the future because when it's written by El Maestro Donizetti, we shouldn't have the idea usually of a so empowered woman. She develops in a male environment, and wow, she's a star. So I think that it's a very brightening and particularly special character. I love Mary.
I recall when the guy is asking for permission to flirt Marie, and that's in fact the expression they have. The expression is, but her fathers need to approve that. It's not singular. It's all this. All this is like Marie is super happy because she has all this huge number of men who always look after her, and of course, she cares for them. Uh, Now that you say that it depicts the life in the militia, in the military, it is also true that that explains why there are several in the music of Maestro Donizetti. There is this rhythm that one associates with the army, tan, 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 and the tambour and all of that. Also very related to that. I remembered also that people used to laugh when they saw Joan Sutherland. You know, she's a super tall woman, or she was a super tall woman, playing with the tambour. Yeah, playing as Mary.
Oh my god.
You really thought, man, if this woman gets mad, she's
She was
really
a
going.
kind of Goliath.
Yeah, wait, huge. But I also recall that she was once interviewed around the role of Marie, and she said that she really loved it a lot. She really had fun. And you know that I have always criticized Sutherland because she doesn't communicate ever anything. But when you look at her recordings of La Fille du Régiment, you always see on her that smile. For the unique time in her life, John Sutherland is smiling.
She has feelings.
That tells you how much she loved to be playing with her tambour and Salut à la France, da 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 da, and the duet with the tenor and everything in there. I think that it is great when you find a role because we have to accept, or maybe people, or many singers will not accept it very openly. There are things that you sing more for obligation or because they fit or they suit your voice, but not really that you love doing it. And but your psychology, the way you feel matches a role that maybe yes is part of yours, but that people are not expecting you to be that close to that role. I'm not sure if I am explaining myself. Things that you have to do for obligation that you don't really love but you perform, and things that you really really love and you wish you had the opportunity of singing more often, but there is not always that opportunity, but your heart is there. Your voice feels fine when you do that. And that's the reason why I think we should have more La Fille du Régiment on stages, going back to the point that the limitation is the tenor. To find a tenor currently that can sing fairly well the high Cs, I think the last one was Camarena, and I think he's not singing
Yes.
that role any longer. He's going more to lyrical roles. Of course, he has grown in age, so he knows that the notes are not coming that easily. So he has
Now it's pretty complicated.
the same case happened with Juan Diego Flores. He was singing that somehow easily. Then he realized he could no longer be, and he moved for lyrical roles. That's usually the path of more for tenors than for sopranos. They move from high tenors moving to lyrical and let the challenging roles apart. But that leaves the operatic world in a way empty, because then you have no good tenors, or at least sufficiently good tenors to sing. Because Maria at the end needs a tenor, otherwise she's not singing her duet. So it's funny to think that the obstacle for singing La Fille du Régiment is the tenor, not the soprano herself. But well, going back to the music, let's get started with talking about the music, and again thanking people in Paris for listening to us. Remember what we have shared in the past. Uh, French is not to be sung, at least not operatically. There are way too many changes in the sounds, so one has to be fair. Again, going back to, let me put it on the screen for a sec, so that everybody can realize about what we're talking about. And I am starting sharing. Oh, if I click on share, maybe it will. So, okay, there it is. So, when you have it there, you say salut, which is a that is very deep. Salut. So, there is no way that is going to work in singing. So you already have trouble with the ooh. Just imagine so, salut à la France. Again, France. You know the it's very guttural. And if
Yeah.
something there is that you cannot do in singing is singing that guttural. So it goes the friction in your throat. You just simply can't. You can say Salut la France, France. It doesn't work because you're trying to expel the sound while the r tries to go inside. So I would say, people, if you listen to a soprano singing French repertoire, even if it's not coloratura, but by just singer singing French repertoire, please appreciate that.
Yes.
Of course, they can go to
Respect her.
they respect them. So, of course, you are not going to say France, France, but they usually go the other way around, France, which is completely on the other. No, no, no. Neither do that. So try to be discreet. Salut à la France, France. À mes beaux. This case is a au jour. À mes beaux jours. We already had three different sounds for the o, u, u. So putting that aside, which is absolutely complicated, think of the intonation of French, which I know our Parisian listeners love, à l'espérance, because it is espérance. Again, there is no way you can do that, espérance, because it's like, oh, espérance. There's no way you can do that in singing. So it's changes in sounds are expected, are necessary to sing it fairly well. Ah, mes amours, salut à la France. There is something that I noticed that I also wanted to comment with you, Katia, that in this first part, in fact, unless your score says something differently, but at least in the first part, there are not double F, no double P's, not super pianissimi, not super forte.
Yeah.
Even though it is a very vivacious aria, Salut à la France, like very playful, it does not go to the extremes in the volumes loud, and it doesn't go to the extremes in the volume low. It's like very average in the volume that the soprano is using, which is
Yeah.
unless your score says something differently, of course.
No, 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 no. Mine it's this the same idea. I think that it has to be playful. It's not spoken because we are not facing a recitativo, obviously. But you don't have the need to effort too much with a double F or triple F, and there's no need of either to sing it pianissimi. For example, I think that you just found the right word. It's pretty average. Salut la France, I think that the pitch by itself leaves pretty clear the idea of the volume and the accents.
Yeah, and the accents work very naturally in here. I'm not sure how Maestro Donizetti came up with this idea, but this piece of music falls very natural because we have shared in the past many times what am I going to do with these low notes here, but if you notice it doesn't require you to add all that chest. You say you don't do that change going deep.
No.
It's naturally falling à l'espérance, and when it even sounds better when you take out all the pasta and let your voice float in all the range of the notes. I'm
Yes.
not saying that you sing false notes. That's not the idea either.
What kind of advice is this?
But what I'm trying to explain is that it flows so naturally that you don't need to overcomplicate your mind. And there is a head, not here, but a head. Oh, there is an F coming. That right after the F, I will go for a G, and then I will go to the central C. You don't have to complicate overcomplicate all of that because the melody is carrying you. Da, la, 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 la. You see, it carries you very nicely in a melody that is in a way predictable, but predictable nicely, not boring. And it sort of injects you with happiness. La 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 la, and you believe that Marie was a very happy girl.
Yeah.
Because at this point in the opera, she's recalling those happy, beautiful days with the regiment. That's what she's recalling, and come those melodies. Because, of course, having been raised with men, being in the military, and all of that, she's used to that. So when she's taken to the castle where everything is very formal, she has to meet people that are like very stiff. She says, "No, man, it doesn't work for me. That's not me." But this type of melodies tell you she's a happy girl. She was so happy with her life. So let's move on because I know that people would like to talk about the ornaments. Here a repetition of the same words. Salut à la France, à l'espérance, mes amis. Salut à la gloire, voilà pour mon cœur. Avec la victoire, l'instant du bonheur. And Kat and I were laughing just before the episode today here because This really shouldn't be a problem. But if you scout a little in the videos in the YouTube, you will find that more than one soprano
Oh my
runs
goodness.
out of breath after the third bar. So they usually cut it here. Say, why not adding a pause? The problem here is that since this is expected to flow, you're following the ornaments, you notice when the lady made a pause there. It's
Sure.
it's like driving a car. You have a 90 kilometers ahead, and she suddenly stops in kilometer 40 like this. Pause. No. I'm not sure of the type of advice because Katia is going to say it's very easy
Because it is.
because it is easy. But um, how can we insist that you, in this case, girls, ladies, have to prepare well before you reach that part?
Well, for me, the key to face a passage like this one, it's to use my air wisely. Because if you are thinking note by note, it will get exhausting, and you will have the need to take air in some part of the phrase. Ah, 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 ah. That feels to me it
Tiring.
is not, yeah, it's not comfortable. But if you have a high enough impostation and you just float in your air, it's pretty much easier. It feels really more simple. But it's more easy to think about walk than being marching because it's
Because
an
by the
effort.
there are two challenges. One, the soprano has to be ready to prepare to do, and these are only 4 bars. I mean, the ornaments are not so many. It's terrible when you see Rossini with 32 notes written in ascending scale and 34 in that's not Rossini, thanks God.
Yes,
But much more
perfect.
manageable.
That's it.
Much more manageable, but you prepare avec la victoire, l'instant du bonheur. By the moment you reach bonheur and start with the ornaments, you're ready. But the exiting part, when you go for those trills, you still have to be very. Um, how can I say? The sound of your voice still has to be very brilliant, so that the exiting part is attractive. Because if you run out of air in the middle of pause because I need to and then I have to do trills and I have to make another pause, it's going to be a disaster. It's truly going to be.
It has been.
It has been so many times a disaster. So you prepare for the ornaments because they consume air. They certainly consume air, but you still need to get ready because you haven't finished the job. You finished the job. I would dare to say that you don't even finish the job right after the trills, but after Salut à la France, because the exiting phrase is France. That's when you finish your job, not
Yeah.
when you say Salut. You say, yeah, à la France.
No,
No!
no. There's no way to cut off the idea in that point. Salut. No,
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 no.
no, no, no.
Please look for videos in the internet on YouTube and you will find a good number of sopranos. I don't want to give the name of that Italian soprano that has sung so many times. But when you listen exactly that way, Salut! Oh, say, lady, what happened there? It happened that she ran out of air. You cannot run out of
No.
air when you still have to say very brilliantly, oh, love, because the oh, it's for only a fraction of a time. And it has to be beautiful and it has to be precise. But if people notice that you're running out of breath, salut, oh, France, remember that Marie is having the time of her life. She's enjoying every note. And when she's playing Salut, oh, la France, ta la 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 la. Because if you say la 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 la, you say it's false, it's fake, it's not working. Has to be the other way around. You capture
He's
people.
not having fun.
She's not she's suffering all the way through the area. So once we have agreed, that's when you're finishing your job for the first part. Uh, and knowing, as we know, the coloratura sopranos, I was wondering they don't add that much. Because there, I don't recall having, there is not even a high C.
No.
So knowing that they like to go to for D's, for E flats, for E sharps, this feels like you would be willing for more. So if a soprano is, what I would say is that if a soprano feels like I need my super high notes, I think that the best advice is, well, you're not having super high notes, but at least sing well what you are given.
Be grateful and do it right.
Yes, we all like high notes, but we also like it when you girls sing well. And for the first time, we see that Maestro Donizetti gave us a double F, emphasizing the France. Salut à la France! Which, by the way, if you don't do correctly, you can crack your voice. In an exercise like that, you can crack your voice. And nobody wants that to happen.
Oh, please.
Imagine you're da da la 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 because the horns you couldn't handle the horn, and that's because the sound of the letter A, the A, tends to be open. Since it has a tendency to be open, it's very easy to slip down a horrible nightmare. So that's why many don't like to give that note in an A. It is not a super high note, but it's requiring volume. Since it is requiring volume because of the double F, that makes it a little dangerous. You want to be careful. Maybe the key there is to not, or I don't know, Katya, what would you suggest? To take it everything a little lower in volume so that you don't fall immediately in the risk of the France, or what would be your advice to not crack your voice in there?
Well, I think that there are two ways to approach to this double F. You could attack and make a crescendo,
Mm-hmm.
or not singing this double F at your 100%. Try the 85, the 90%, where you feel you still have the control.
Yeah, that is good advice.
I know it's pretty simple, but sometimes we try to prove ourselves, and sometimes we try to convince the others that we can do one thing or another, but there's no need to risk yourself to do something like this. So if I have to choose, well, I think that I would prefer to be safe, to do a good work, and I would sing it, yeah, probably at my 90%.
And I wouldn't say it is super difficult, but it has this initial part that we have already reviewed, but and you're singing it on stage or watching the performance in a theater. Then there is a choir, and then she goes back for the team, repeating with some variations, basically the same text, which tends to be tiring. At the end, can be tiring. I was watching yesterday Edita Gruberova doing it, and I told myself, "My God, this is tiring." I mean, I saw her and say, we haven't shared it with our listeners. I think maybe it would be a good time to do it now. That and it is because stage directors really don't know anything about singing. Maybe you have read it somewhere, but they ask you to do things that oppose clearly to the position that you need to have when singing. Of course, you can look like a dead body, like Renata Tebaldi, who would never move and would always be like that. And the position of the head of Renata Tebaldi clearly is done for having maximizing the openness of the cavities so that she would produce that beautiful sound that she had. But when you look at Tebaldi singing her Tosca, you say, "Man, the Tosca is already dead. She's barely moving." So you have cases like Renata Tebaldi, but you have other cases, and that's what I admire the most from Nathalie Dessay, the also French great coloratura, is that I really don't know how can she even sing when she's moving and playing and going back and forward and sits and stands up and then runs to the left and then runs to the right and then she makes movement with the body. Nathalie Dessay is tremendous, but the advantage here for Nathalie is that she, even though she's doing all of that, if you pay attention at her, you see how is even if she's moving, she keeps a very steady control of her thoracic box because she knows that the moment she loses it, she loses everything. She won't be able to sing, and that's what called my attention of Edita Gruberova because she says, "I know that if I move, something is going to go wrong." So, but this time she chooses to move. So it's very interesting to see Edita Gruberova, who was also usually very aesthetic, doing that. But at the same time, I told myself, my God, this is tiring. I mean, yes, you're having fun. Salut à la France, you run to the right. Salut à la France, you run to the left. Salut you run to the front. You move to the back because now the choir is singing with you. The choir finished. I'm going to the back to front again. My Lord.
Yes.
So, somewhere in between, because of what I made fun on how static Renata Tebaldi was in this example, but the other case of the stage directors asking you to run, jump, do this, do that, can easily make the singers change, modify in a negative way the position that is required for the thoracic box and the clavicules. And there is a whole theory and explanation behind it that Katia can certainly explain very clearly, because one of the first things that you do with your singer is that you make sure that he's standing in the right position to be able to sing. Because if he is not in the right position, then the clavicules will make excessive pressure. Yeah, if it is, I don't know how you say that in English, encogido, how do you say that? Shrunk? I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
So maybe you have seen when you have a singer singing, you notice it moreover in recitals. When you look at it, say, why is the tenor so pretentious? Why is he always walking and standing like that? It's because that's the position you need to sing. Well, maybe certainly the tenor will be pretentious, but
But he also needs that position for singing.
yeah, he also needs that. So that could be the right explanation. With all that in mind, these pieces of music are really, really, really tiring, not only vocally but physically. Keep that in mind. There is one important piece of data that I haven't shared. I read that there are some studies that there are some singers who, in a single presentation of an opera on one night, can lose up to 2 or 2.5 kilos of weight because of
I
the
should
effort.
sing more often.
Because you're also wearing a costume. If you're already singing, it's not only you. You're wearing usually a costume. If you're lucky that you're at a mess, you're only wearing this short skirt and showing your legs. But if you're singing something else heavier, in Lucia di Lammermoor with the full
Oh
costume,
my god, yes.
you're going to die. Basically at the end when you stab yourself because you're already so tired. But why don't we go for the final part of the Salut à la France, which, as we were explaining, it's basically a repetition of the first part, and it is many times. It has cuts. It is also very typical in the bel canto that the sopranos say, "Look from bar this one to this one, cut all those 20 bars because I am going to skip from point A to point B." Basically, because I want to. That's the explanation we usually get. So we are going to do that, and we are going to skip to the very final part, or at least for the version that I have here. When there are only 3 repetitions, Vive la France, Vive la France, and then you wrap up nicely, I would say, hopefully, if you're still alive to be able to sing the final part after jumping and singing in front of the red left. If you still have breath and energy to do that, how would you suggest that the soprano, the singer, go for her final Vive la France and the wrapping up of her aria? It is not super
Well,
high.
if you still have air.
If you still have air.
I think that in this part, for me, there is not too much effort. Because when you have been also retaining part of your energy, because yes, it is true that you have to come up and down and you run, and it is a playful song, but vocally you are not singing the most virtuosistic aria that exists. So vocally you still have energy. I feel it this way. So it is the time when you can leave all that pressured content can explode. I feel that it feels a little releasing indeed.
Could you say that maybe they should try going higher or keeping the note for longer? Or what would you suggest if the soprano wants to make it more spectacular? Because truth is that it is very discreet. I mean, compared to what a soprano could do, the wrapping up as written, at least by written, it is very discreet, it's very modest.
Yes.
And sopranos like to be modest.
honestly, soprano and modest are words that should not exist in the same universe.
So, knowing that they cannot be in the same universe, what would you suggest for sopranos to show a little of what they can do at the ending? Go for
Honestly, I feel tempted to add a higher note. I try to respect the most what is written in the score, and usually I sing what the composer left. But in this point, I think that yes, I would add a higher note. For example, I would love to do something like that. Yeah. Honestly, and nothing that is word of.
I was also thinking of the same, that the high note has to be in la, vive la has to be the high note, Because France gives you the opportunity to go back to another note. No, France, and then you wrap up then with whatever the note you can keep for France. It sounds way much natural than if you want to add it in France. Sounds
But
weird.
I think that I already did it in France. Yeah.
I heard that you did la and then France. That's what I heard. I might be wrong.
No, I sang it at France
Oh, okay.
with the usual. Ah.
La France, like that, right?
But I could. I just did it.
And people are expecting that. I have many times wondered why our dear composers, knowing that people want that type of wrapping up in the aria, why they went for something so discreet as it is the case of the wrapping up of Viva la France, that you say, okay, man, but what is coming? Oh, it's not coming anything else. She just finished.
No, really.
But how come that she finished? When is she singing my high C or D or whatever note is coming? No, she's not doing it. How is it that she's not doing it? What do you mean?
Sorry, what?
So that is expected, and for a soprano who can sing Marie, should certainly be singing a high D securely, being able to be singing it nicely.
Piece of cake.
Because if she sings only up to a high C, if she wants to give something else at the end of this, she could find herself in trouble.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be our last recommendation for today's program. We have mentioned it a little in the past. If you want to go for this repertoire and your top is a high C, maybe you shouldn't be singing this. You won't be comfortable. Because if you want to wrap up on La France and you want to sing a high C and that is your highest note,
You'll be in trouble.
most likely
This is not the point to be at your limit. No. No. You have to feel more comfortable in a higher pitch to sing that C easily.
and comfortable means comfortable. Really means comfortable. Not I do my vocalization with my teacher and I reach a C sharp. Sometimes.
Great.
When I'm at 100%. So really don't risk yourself
No.
in that, because else you're going to be singing it like written and people will notice that you're lacking something. So could be a piece of advice. Of course, if you still love Marie, you will have lots of fun singing Marie, as I like listening to her. But try to, and Katia has mentioned it a good number of times, sing repertoire where you feel comfortable, where you feel fine, where you know you are confident. Because the minute you say, okay, I'm a dramatic soprano, I am going to sing Abigail in Nabucco, there is no way you're going to be relaxed if you're going to sing Abigail in Nabucco. You will have nightmares for nights and nights.
Don't.
And moreover, if you are young, because when you are young, it is not the time for you to expose in those complicated roles. Go for something that really matches more what you can do at the level of maturity your voice is at. We explained it a good number of seasons before. Maybe we should go back to that in a later program. There is a level of maturity for each of the voices at each of the stages of your vocal maturity. You can do different things. There is a period when you are at your peak, but if you try to sing the things of your maturity before you reach the peak, you will never reach the peak. You will spoil.
No, yeah.
So tenors say, okay, if I sing Il Trovatore when I am 32, when I am 40 I can sing Radames. No,
Do not.
you won't be able to even sing Rodolfo.
You won't see the hit.
You won't be able to sing anything, basically. So if you feel comfortable with the whole role of Marie, go for it. Look at your high notes. Well, look where you're confident. If you're a shy girl, maybe this is not your repertoire either, because Marie has to be a superstar. To be very open, smiley, maybe not flirting, maybe it's not museta, but at the end, be like very warm-hearted, because Marie projects this very positive energy. If you feel trouble with that, if the character is going to be causing you some trouble because your personality really doesn't match that, maybe you should look for something else. Those would be my thoughts.
Probably you could sing Mimi.
Really, because we know there are sopranos who feel fine singing roles like Mimi, and it is completely fine.
Yes, of course. Mimi is a very beautiful role, and I mean, you don't have to feel the pressure for singing or doing something that is not good for you. There's no need.
Because here we are here to enjoy and have fun and love music. So with that being said, I want to thank Katya for today's program that has been super fun, super hilarious. And again, thank everybody in the 91 countries, 880 cities, but in particularly today, thank you very much, people in Paris, for being so loyal to the program. The presence in Paris grew in 3 months. In 3 months, you reached the peak of the listeners we have. So once again, thank you very much, people in Paris, from Mexico. Thank you, Katia.
Thank you, everybody. Salut à la France, à l'espérance, à mes amants.
You can follow our channel for the latest updates and more content. Opera will love singing, in just one word. Link in the description of the episode.